How about that?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, hello. How are you?
Hello.
How are you?
I- I'm fine.
How are you, Grandma?
I'm fine, dear.
Okay. So, can you both introduce yourself?
Okay, I'll start first. My name is Mr. Thomas Lee Stewart Sr. I'm 76 years old, and
Hmm.
I am the grandfather of Alyse Stewart, who is interviewing me at this particular time. And now I'll turn it over to Grandma. Introduce yourself.
Hello. My name is Mabel, and I am Alyse's grandma.
Okay. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for doing this interview. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
So, I'm basically asking the interview is about, let me read directly. It's designed to identify how social problems relate to social institutions. So, the first question that I'm going to ask you, and you can be very relaxed about it. This is kind of like a conversation type. So you don't. It's not a proper. You don't have to think like this is a job interview, basically. So the first question is: most couples say that they are married because they love their spouse. What do you think is love?
Well, Grandma, you can go first.
Well, love is something that's inherent.
Hmm.
It's an emotion that goes so deep that it goes beyond chemistry. It's truly something that's actually that's inbred, and it's something that we feel as an emotion towards someone that some folks say it's chemistry, and
Hmm.
some folks feel like love at first sight. But nobody can really explain where it comes from, except that it comes from God, who loves us so much that he gave us 100% of his being in love. And therefore, we feel the same love that God feels for us, and we feel it for each other, especially if we meet a spouse or someone we fall in love with, as we claim, and we get married. It's a deep, 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 unexplainable thing that I don't think anybody can really explain it unless they explain it on the surface. They can't really explain it from the heart. That's what I think love is. It's something that never, ever, ever goes away. And it's a part of our humanity, a part of our being.
You done, Grandma?
That's nice, Grandma. What do you think love is, Granddad?
I think love is when you have a tremendous amount of respect for an individual or human being, or it could be an animal. It's just when you have a tremendous amount of respect for someone. And love is interpreted in many different ways. It could be that you feel in your mind or an individual's mind that you just can't live without that person. But that might be obnoxious to some people. But to be simple, love is when you have an enormous amount of respect for an individual. When you have not sympathy, but just pure love and respect. That's what I think love is.
That's beautiful, Granddad.
Well, thank you. You
Um,
are too kind.
what will make love as you define it last so that there is a successful or stable marriage?
Well, to have a stable marriage, you're going to have to be able to handle all facets of life, meaning all forms of intricacies that may come or encounter life, meaning that if you have a problem with finance, or if you have a problem with, say, your mate's best friend or friend, you have to be able to discuss that with your mate and come up with a comprehensive solution in order to resolve that issue, because otherwise it'll never work. You got to be able to identify and isolate all problems and situations that come before you and your mate in order to make it or be successful in that particular relationship. Otherwise, it'll never work.
Grandma, do you want to answer too? Do you want to hear that
Yes,
question
and could
again?
you repeat that question, please, dear?
Yes. What will make love as you define it last so that there is success or stable marriages?
Well, to me, love, especially in a marriage, is like a ring that goes around and around and around in a circle. And most rings don't break, especially, say, if you use it as an example, a gold band. That ring does not break. So it's more or less like as you go around and around in life, you don't look for any flaws or anything that may break that marriage, and things may come in, and other people may say or do things that may deter you from having a good marriage. Certain things don't work in a marriage. One thing is if you gossip about your mate or you talk down about your mate, and everything you do it with dignity and, as your granddad say, with respect towards each other. And you may have issues. Nobody's perfect. That's one thing about humanity here on earth. We are not perfect beings. But we have to remember that just like that ring goes around and around and around in love, that stability should be in a marriage the same as that's in that ring. That when you get married, a groom may put on his bride's finger, or in return, she may give him a ring. So I think it's just the matter of just not breaking that band of love. And you get to a point sometimes that you may not like each other so much, but still that band of love is still there, and you don't let anything come inside of that band that will break that band.
So those, you would say that those are y'all keys to a successful marriage, basically.
I think so.
It's diligence. And, even though, the thing is you cannot be a quitter in a marriage.
Right.
A lot of people, they get mad, they get upset. Next thing you know, they say, I'm going to hit the door. You can't be a runner. You can't be somebody that's just going to split the scene. It's going to be things that's going to happen that will certainly break you up. Some couples let it get to them to the point that it breaks them up. But you have to remain strong. You have to hold your end, even though it may be something that you do that your spouse hates, or that they do that you hate. It's like, what about me right now? How am I feeling about the situation? Am I one that's just going to skip and run and leave the situation? Or am I going to remain steadfast and strong and stay in it? Now, it's different if you have a spouse or mate that's trying to fight on you. That's a difference, okay? But you have to be careful who you listen to advice from. You can't get to the point that I want to always run out with the boys. Or I always want to go out with the girls. Your husband have to be priority. He have to be priority, your husband or your wife, regardless of how it looks. You may have children, you may have grandchildren. It's mutual respect that grows in that marriage, and that grows with each generation that comes out of that marriage. And that's the integrity and the trust and the wedding band, like I said before, that should not be broken. That circle of love that continues on, regardless of what's said or what's done. And then always remember to pray about it. You don't have to pray for the whole world to know you're praying. You pray to yourself. You take it to the Lord by yourself. If things look like they're troublesome, because a lot of times we can get things in our mind that may be imaginary.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make sure we sort it out and make sure, is this worth me leaving over? You have to pray if you have friends that your friends are the right friends. If they're bringing stuff to you that's causing your ears to itch and make you wonder if you should stay there, then that may not be the friend for you. You don't need a friend that's going to give. Okay.
You heard? Is that all, Grandma?
Yep.
So how long have y'all been married? Can you hear me?
51 years. Over 50. We were married 51 years in December 31st.
Ooh. I okay, Grandma or Granddad. I have to see at least one of your faces. I can't see the wall. I can't.
You can't see us?
No, you put it down so I can only see the ceiling.
Can you see us now? I'm pointing at my face.
I can see you, Granddad. I can't see you, Grandma. I can only hear you.
Can you
Okay.
see her?
Yes, I can see you, Grandma. You on video?
Okay. I got it pointed, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I set it down.
Okay.
But to finish that question, I think when a man and a woman, if a man and a woman is going to solidify their relationship in marriage,
Mm-hmm.
they must each have respect, RESPECT, for each other. If they don't have respect for each other, that the marriage or the relationship will never last. There's got to be each other's best friend. That's the only way it's going to make it.
And regardless of whether they know it or not, sometimes couples are each other's best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad part about it is that they don't know it. They don't know that that's truly their best friend. Now, you find some folks who may have some selfish ways or whatever, and that's where you work with each other and you let your partner, your spouse know, okay, this is not something that you should be doing. Not that you're trying to criticize them, but you want to feed into them because that's your family member. That's your immediate family. So you have to be careful. As I said before, the biggest problem, a lot of people say it's money in marriages.
Mm-hmm.
I believe one of the biggest problem in marriages is outside interference. Much like if you're playing a basketball game or if you're playing any kind of game that's out here and you get interference, that can stop the play that somebody's doing. It can stop the whole game, especially if they cheat or whatever. But the point is you have to know, as who was that songwriter said, when to hold them and when to fold. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. Like my father, your granddaddy, great granddad used to say. He said sometimes you can marry the wrong mate. He would stick by that sometimes you can marry the wrong mate. Most of the time, if you do that, you know it almost immediately. You know it. Okay.
Okay. I'm
Anything else you
loving
want to
the
add?
answers. They're amazing. So, what do you think about these things? Divorce, cohabitation, single parenthood, remarriages, and illegitimacy in American communities or Black
You
communities.
said illegitimacy? Illegitimacy? Was
Divorce,
that the last one?
cohabitation, single parenthood, remarriages, and illegitimacy.
Okay, so you want to take the first two or three? Okay.
Divorce.
One.
I don't really know anything about divorce other than I've seen a lot of my friends divorce, but I know that they divorced for different reasons. They fell out of love with the person that they thought they was initially in love with when they supposedly found someone else. But to me, I don't know. It's just difficult. I always feel that they didn't care for that person in the first place because I just don't think that anyone who really truly loves someone can fall out of love with that person and so-called fall in love with someone else. To me, that just does not make sense at all, because otherwise we wouldn't be together today. And the single parent, you said?
Yes. Cohabitation and single parenthood.
I'm not too sure about that single parenthood. You got to live it in order to understand it, because I
Yeah.
don't. Well, I do. I think you have to live it.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
what I said. I agree.
I don't have the faintest idea about the single familyhood, because it's
Right.
always been two of us
Right.
to make decisions regarding the children in our lives, our children. So I don't know how to deal with that one. The illegitimacy, that's another one I'm not familiar with. I can't speak to that illegitimacy. You talking about illegitimate children?
Yes. Like,
Oh wow. I
adolescent
Well,
can't.
and stuff.
yeah. Well, I'll say this. And I'm going to use the Bible here because the Bible says that God opens and He closes the womb. Okay. So there have been many, many, many situations where children were born in illegitimacy. I think Shakespeare, or one of them, I believe maybe it was Shakespeare, I believe he had a child who was illegitimate. It happens. It happens repeatedly. Going back to what the Bible tells us, the Bible says that, if a man sleeps with a woman, he should marry her. That's from the Old Testament. It's true. A lot of people, they don't want to listen to that. They feel like that's old school stuff, but it's not. It's Bible. So the thing is that a lot of times in cases of illegitimacy, the man may not be willing to take his responsibility, or the female may not want to marry the man, or situations happen. Years ago, when a child was born in illegitimacy, or if a woman became pregnant and a man, they normally would take that responsibility and marry that female. It was a different mindset back then. Today, I think a lot of TV and radio and all of that, it shows that certain things are all right to do. In my opinion, it is 100% better to have a child who's born in illegitimacy than to have an abortion. Because in most cases, abortion is going to kill what you think that you may have done wrong. So if you have a child that's born in love, most of the cases, illegitimate or not, a child is born out of a love act. In cases that rape or incest or something like that may occur, we can't touch that. But the whole point is that regardless of how it happens, God did not say to have an abortion, because the child have absolutely nothing to do with the way he or she was born. They just can't help it. And that's to speak for all of us. So illegitimacy, you can abstain. To be honest with you, most women, most men are not doing that today. They're not going to do that.
Not gonna do
They
what?
they're not going to abstain,
Uh-huh.
because lust plays a big part in life, as well as being in love,
True.
which is a familiar situation with divorces. Okay, because in some cases, a man may see a woman that look good, and he's really lusting after her, when he really don't have the factors of actual love for her, where he can remain in a long, steady marriage. Most of the time, as I said, these outside effects come into place when a man or woman divorces. But, we've never been divorced, but I can still speak to certain things because my dad was a divorcee, but he married your grandma, your great grandma, and that's where he had his family. He was
So
married
on
the
the
first time.
grandma. So on
Huh?
the topic of that, what do you think about remarriage then? Like after divorce, somebody getting remarried.
It's nothing wrong with it,
Hmm.
because, as I said, using my dad again, he remarried my mom. He was like 19 when he married his first wife. They were very, 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 very young. sometimes you're just not mature enough to make a marriage work.
Yeah.
And you have to look at the factors. It's nothing wrong with remarriage. Nothing wrong with it at all.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
I have another question. If I could find where it starts. Regarding are what we are experiencing in African American communities today regarding the family, marriages, and remarriages the same compared to when you were growing up?
It's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's a humongous difference. For one thing, a lot of the black men's and females, but especially the black men's issues have been what they call no respect. They feel like they did not get respect. Over the years, a lot of this have cropped over to the families today. And men will sleep with anybody, have a whole bunch of babies, and have no idea who they want to marry, don't have any concept of marriage. And yes, I see this for myself. It's a lot of mama's baby boys out here who are 40s and over. I see this as a fact myself.
Mm-hmm.
So the point is, it's almost regrouping and letting these mothers know, okay, he's your son. You're going to always love him, but he's not a baby. You have to let him grow up.
Yeah.
First of all, by letting them take care of their own responsibilities. I can't even name I could name them, not name them, but the number of mothers that I have who bring their children's taxes to me to be prepared instead of the son himself bringing his taxes to me to be prepared. So it's like they're still doing things for them like they are little children, and they won't let them loose. They won't let their hand loose.
They won't let them grow up.
They won't let them grow up. They won't let them be men. So a lot of this, I see different things in the black society today that we could definitely get a handle on if we even brought conventions together, not just to cover black folks, but just to understand what our stand is today, not our plight, but our stand, because we have quite a few entities that's coming up against us. With so many black men being and women, black females too, they can't make a wrong move because the police or somebody could shoot them,
Mm-hmm.
or they could get in trouble and they're mistreated, and they think this is compared to whites, but that's not always the case because whites are put in pretty bad positions too. If we could look at the whole situation, a holistic perspective versus taking each group and separating them and say, this is what happens to us, and it happens to us more, and it happens to us more. Is stand up like we did when we were out of slavery. We came to a country we knew nothing about. We were brought over here slaves in chains. And we were able to rise up, not just in the 50s and the 60s, but even today when blacks are doing better than they have ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Such as the area that we live in, which is one of the highest performing areas in the country, that they make more money than the average state anywhere, except for California. The numbers here are tremendous as far as the money income. Not that we're crazy about money, but what are we doing with it? We're building big fine houses, but are we doing what God tells us to do? To help the poor. It's a lot of poor children, a lot of poor black children. Do we focus on that? Do we focus on bringing the little foster children into our homes and raising them like our own and treating them well and feeding them and clothing them? No, we don't. Do we help the widows? No. There are certain things that we as a black population who have come out of great oppression that we do not do.
Well, thank you, Ms. Stewart.
Thank you, Miss Stewart, Miss McIntyre Stewart. Okay,
Oh, that
so
was quick. Okay, so we're back
back
to
to
okay.
asking questions. We only got like 5 minutes left, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, Though there are nevertheless obstacles that we face in America because of race, what can and should be done by us, meaning black people, to solve some of the problems facing the nuclear family and marriage in our communities?
When you say nuclear, could you
Nuclear
explain that?
meaning like two partners and kids, basically. That's what that means.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mel.
What can we do?
Yeah, like what can we do and what should we do?
I think that first of all,
Like
we
your
need to come.
family.
We need to come together as families.
Mhm.
And, I'm just the type who say we should come together as a tribe.
Mhm.
Families are the most important things in this entire earth. To be able to come together, say, if every family say, okay, we're going to meet every Saturday night at say 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and we're just going to have a 30-minute to an hour chat time, letting each family member speak, okay, and talk about how they feel and what their needs are. We have to have more care. We have to have more compassion than we have shown. One little simple measure is just to start speaking to each other.
Mhm.
Good morning. How are you? If every family, nuclear or whoever, said, we're going to make a habit. We're going to put a smile on our face, whether we feel like it or not. And we're going to say, good morning. How are you? Whether that individual speaks or not to become angry, but just to do it. If we made a commitment. Another thing I thought about is the colleges. You all have a lot of wealth among you that you can really, really, really get some action from what you do. Not necessarily protesting and all of that. Protesting is good. But I'm saying literally to be able to start some initiatives out here that will be global. And I'm done. I know it's only have a few minutes.
Do you have anything, Granddad?
No, I think grandmother did a good job on that.
Okay. I'm going to ask you one more question. What are. Never mind. Because I feel like this is going to be long.
It won't be. I'm not going to answer it. Let Granddaddy answer.
I may not know what's going
You
on.
will. You answer. You be
Okay,
okay.
so what are the causes or origins of these social problems? Basically, like divorce, cohabitation, the stuff we talked about a little bit earlier. And are they largely moral problems as claimed by critics? Or are they because religious meaning no longer permeates the everyday life of Americans? It's a loaded question, but.
Yeah, that's a loaded question, Alyse.
Religion definitely have a part in religion when they took prayer out to do. Go ahead.
I said that's a loaded question. I don't know.
But just do you?
It
What
could
do you
be.
think is the
It could
cause
be.
of our problem?
It could be some religion. It could be slavery.
Yeah.
It could go as far back as 250, 300 years ago when our ancestors were brought over from Africa over into this country, and they were just made to do things that they had no knowledge of doing whatsoever, and working in these tobacco fields and cotton fields and God knows whatever else in the hot streaming sun from sun up to sundown. And then you had our black women in the kitchen cooking all day long for the white folks and the black folks. I mean, this was just a never-ending thing. So,
and then too, to bring it up to a further generation, and I'm not going to talk long, I promise you, is when the blacks started to use mind-altering drugs. It started back in like the 60s when they were doing the weed and the marijuana.
Yeah, I think it was the 60s.
I think that we are too elegant of a creature to be putting anything in our minds. We have natural strength, natural knowledge. When we start to put other things in our minds to alter us, and our bodies, big mistake. Knowing what we have been through, it's almost like you have a sick population that's sick because of how they have been treated sociologically. And then we get to a point we got to walk around smoking weed and all this other stuff. And a lot of that caused a lot of the problems we see today. I was in that generation. Okay. So I know for a fact it wasn't just the black population, it was the hippies and all that other stuff, and marijuana and LSD and all that that really altered us. And now they have legalized certain drugs.
Well,
These people,
marijuana isn't
marijuana,
considered a
yeah.
hard drug. It's cocaine, what is it, LSD,
Well,
and
LSD was back in those days, the 60s.
cocaine and other hard drugs. But marijuana is not considered a hard drug
It's
because
not, but
marijuana
it's
is
still
considered a
mild.
legal drug today.
Yeah.
Marijuana is a drug that supposedly relaxes the mind, relaxes the body, allows people to endure things that they might not.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. The first question is, most couples say that they are married because they love their spouse. What do you think is love? What do you think love is? Or the definition
You
of
said
love?
because they love their what?
Spouse.
Oh, spouse. I mean, how am I
Their
supposed to know?
spouse. So what do you think love is? Well, define love. What does love mean to you?
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Love to me is a choice you make and a commitment to love a person every day, despite whether or not you like them, whether they are giving and filling your love tank up or not.
You love Tank?
I got a love tank, girl. I do.
To
Mom?
me, love is an unconditional state of being when it comes to another individual. Ties into what your auntie said, just in terms of it doesn't, whether you could go through a space of liking or not liking a person, but that does not affect how you ultimately care about that person. So that's how I see love, an unconditional state of being.
I almost forgot, but can you introduce yourselves and your relationship to me?
Oh, yeah. My name is Dawn Stewart, and I am your mother.
I'm Selena Stewart, and I'm her aunt and godmother,
Okay.
and being that saves her from all things, and the person that answers her calls, and the person who picks her butt up.
Look, we don't know who's about to see this, okay? Simmer down.
It's just my teacher. It's just my teacher. Okay. What will make love as you define it last so that there is successful or stable marriage? Or relationship, let's say.
So how do we see it? How, as we defined it, how do we see it that will create a successful relationship or marriage?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, knowing from to create a successful relationship or marriage, in my perspective, based off of how I define love, is people entering into that connection knowing that the other person is a human being, and life happens. Life gets hard, but you're also dealing with a human being who has strengths and areas of improvement, and has the ethic, has a character, a good character, to like withstand difficult moments and or choices, right? But makes the best decision that they can make for themselves and that relationship.
For me, it's someone who shows up every day with respect, in a loving, kind manner. It's someone who seeks to create an environment of safety and security, like protecting my heart, protecting my emotions, protecting that house, that car we need to drive. All the things, but in particular, showing up. I think, for me, I need someone to show up and not give up on the relationship, and a commitment to keep trying and to keep working.
Okay. So what are your keys to a happy relationship or marriage?
Sex,
Especially like what you had said earlier, like
affection, money, responsibility, accountability, responsibility.
What? Pardon me. What was the question again?
the question is, what are your keys to a happy relationship or marriage?
Oh, I'm gonna add empathy, a lack, it's not a lack, some compassion. I'm gonna add good on top of sex.
Not a lack of compassion.
You said what? You don't need compassion.
No, we all need compassion.
Okay. Yeah. So good physical encounters. Is it still recording?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's on my computer. Oh, there she is.
Oh, I'll wait till she come back. She probably logged back in.
Ooh, Lord.
I know, girl. What is it? 9, 10, 9? Ooh. Girl, I'll be in the shower in the bed by now.
Exactly. My bedtime is 8:45, 9 o'clock. So, you're on mute, Alyse.
Okay, sorry. It kicks me out. I don't know why. So what do you think about applications, co-parenting, marriages, and legitimacy in American communities?
I can't hear that. You were breaking up for me.
Oh, back
Lord.
out. I wonder if it
I'm gonna need
to
to get some good Comcast or Verizon internet. Okay.
To my understanding, it's
It's not even Tuskegee. She's not at Tuskegee. She's off campus.
Oh, is she? Maybe she drops the questions in the chat.
This is question 4. Can you drop question 4?
Question 4. Can you hear me?
A little bit. You breaking up. A little. Now I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do you think about divorce, cohabitation, single parenthood, remarriages, and illegitimacy in American communities?
Lord have mercy. You save this for question 4.
I think it is an intentional, systematic ploy to destroy.
This is not funny. Edit this part out.
Destroy certain populations within society.
I think it's rooted in how people are raised. Sometimes people walk into marriage with divorce being an option. Like that's because their parents are divorced or they've seen people get divorced. So they may not have the tools to actually figure out how to make marriage work. And so if you don't have the tools, you need to be in therapy or figure out how you're going to approach marriage or get on the same page. Because I think that's an issue. Ain't nobody hear my brilliance.
I
This is
heard you, honey.
brilliant.
I heard you. I heard it all. I'm like, systematic.
I know. It's a system that got us down, making us get divorces.
You was feeling it.
Oh my
I know.
God.
Feeling it.
But it's gonna be recorded on your part, even though it kicked me out.
Yeah, it's still recording.
So
Wait, what
it's
was
still
you
gonna be
said
on
all
here.
these things, divorce, illegitimacy. What was it? What was all these
Yes,
categories?
I said cohabitation, single parenthood, remarrying.
So
Like
cohabitation,
what are your thoughts on it?
cohabitation has evolved for me. You know, mommy and daddy's generation, it just didn't happen as common, right? It didn't. Our generation, what are we doing? Gen X. Gen X, I think it became more.
I thought you was a millennial.
I ain't no millennial. I'm definitely not a millennial. No girl.
I think Sterling's like a millennial.
He is, and we're not in the same category of people. But
Oh,
My
I think
bad.
cohabitation. Yes, thank you. Cohabitation, it's changed. For our generation, it's more acceptable. Women have more power though financially. So I think for many people, especially women, I think the reason that I think about that women are willing to cohabitate, because you want to know what this fool is like, live together. And you know, if you just wait till marriage and you get married and you move in, you may find out that he got chocolate drawers. You may find out that he don't wash himself good when nobody's around. He only washes himself for dates. You know, he may have a messy house. You know, all types of things. But I think when you cohabitate, you get the person. It's hard to put on a face 24/7 when you guys see someone that frequently. So I think
might find out they got a porn addiction.
Right. Or any type of addiction. But yeah, I mean, that's true. That's real true right there. But but I think you get to see more of the person. So it's not a bad thing that people cohabitate, in my view.
I mean, at this stage, I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, cohabitation, people have been doing it for years. That's why they have common law marriage in place from like years ago. So it's nothing new. I just think it's about, you know, how it's executed, how it's done. The things that what happens before you get to them, what things have you already taken the time to observe in your partner, or allowed your partner to observe in you before you actually move in and live together, because that's a totally different reality.
Yeah.
If someone's under the same roof with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have another question. What we are experiencing in the African American community today regarding the family, marriages, and remarriages the same compared to when you were growing up?
What? I don't understand.
So
Can you say it again?
Is marriage, family, and like getting remarried the same in the community and Black community, or different than when you were growing up?
I mean, it's different from well before when I was growing up, because you know them stories where people was disappearing because you know
not disappearing.
People was disappearing. Wives was disappearing husbands back in the day, according to some of the stories. But I mean, I think now when you look around, it's just a lot easier to divorce, to get a separation. It's a whole lot easier. Women have more money. They're more financially able to actually even think about the decision that they're not happy and then move forward with doing something about it. versus back in the day, the husband used to work, and whatever type of allowance he may give his wife and so forth. So she really didn't even think about, but that was a part of the societal norm. Like your grandparents, they're together. Like, they've been together how many years?
51.
51. Their generation didn't really start thinking about divorce until what? Probably like the 80s, or I don't know, around that time frame, the 80s, maybe 90s. I'm not sure. But you start seeing a lot of older people who are like, you know what, times have changed. I ain't gotta stick with this. You know what I mean? And they made the decision.
With this ninja. I definitely,
yeah.
I don't know. I feel that's tough. Well, so one, I think divorce is more accessible.
Yep.
Just being an attorney, you see that there are way more divorce attorneys than existed, 20 years ago, because there may not have been as much of a market for it. But the other thing is, this is our reality. Women, we can talk about the women who are empowered, and those are the people who have pursued a career, have money of their own, have been fairly independent. But then you have these pockets of America where there are laws still on the books where 12-year-olds can marry people over the age of 21. And so, and I would say that is less progressive in those situations, because if a 12-year-old marries a 36-year-old, which I just saw on TV, she doesn't even have the right to divorce him until 18. And if she runs away, he's her guardian. So they got to bring her back to her guardian. So that still happens.
No, honey.
That still happens in America. It happens in Missouri. It happens in Utah. There are still laws on the books.
I'm glad I had a chokehold on you, girl. I'm glad I had a chokehold on you. I couldn't handle that.
Right. But that's the reality. It's not our reality, because we live in a different place, and those archaic laws are not on the books. But so I think it depends on the woman and her exposure, where she lives, because divorce is definitely more accessible for independent women who've made money for themselves and have reached an age of maturity. But I also think that it's more socially acceptable. Like, I hear things all the time. If he don't treat you right, you leave. Even if it's 25 years, 30 years, however many times you hear people leaving their marriages more because they're not happy. So I think, and I don't see people really judging those folks unless you're like a Catholic or Mormon or something like that. Those more religious viewpoints. But in general, I think it's more accessible and more socially acceptable in most places.
Okay, they sitting in the next room, but I'm gonna ask you a very loaded question. Okay, it's long and it's low. So, what are the causes or origins of these social problems? The ones that we had talked about before: divorce, cohabitation, single parenthood. That. Are they largely moral problems as claimed by some critics, or are they because religious meaning no longer permeates the everyday life of the Americans?
Isn't it the same as a moral thing?
It might not be.
Well,
I know religion is really encompasses a moral compass, not all of them.
Yeah. Some people just ain't right. They ain't right. They ain't right. They ain't ripe or ready for marriage.
Ripe or ready.
No,
okay, wait a minute. I'm trying to make sure that I don't say nothing too off to the left so you said loaded question.
But I'm just trying to think if the systems itself make it harder for African Americans in particular to be married.
I mean, they do.
How so?
Okay, so what was that? 1950, 1960, 70? I don't know at this point. I'm tired. I need to take my behind the bed. But I mean, you had an entire US government that were paying women more money to not have a man in the house in order to have,
Oh yeah.
there was children,
That was like in the 70s, right? 70s, 80s in
yeah, you
the
had children that you had women, wives that had good relationships, good marriages. And because husbands, it was difficult for the husbands to find jobs, because of the
and good paying
systematic
job.
racism. Um,
That's
they
so
actually
true. I
had to
forgot about that.
split. They had to that not split, but the father had to be outside of the home, and the mother being in the home raising the children, him sneaking back in. That disempowers a man, right? That
Yeah.
disempowers a man. So now he's like, well, let me go somewhere where I'm valued. Well, he starts trying to, because it's a psychological, it's a psychological thing. So I mean, that's what, I think it's all systematic. I think it's all systematic, even in terms of like just wealth, the wealth distribution, or where people were able to be reside. You had redlining, in the housing market. So when from my perspective, I do see it all somewhere somehow it all relates somewhere to the system.
Yeah. Financial upward mobility. That's so true because your mom was right. I think that was the 80s because it was around the time of the crack pandemic. But Black men couldn't get jobs. They had kids, and the government said, we're not going to give you this check unless you were a single parent household. So you could not get assistance from the government unless you could show that it was just you and no man in the house, which means that some women had to make some tough choices. This man, or do I feed these two kids?
Yeah, and they would actively go into their homes and look for any type of male apparel. Like they were sending workers in to look for shoes.
Like these ladies couldn't be boning at night, But either way,
I mean,
but
like
they did that more in Black communities. Yeah. They did not do that in white communities.
Those
women were portrayed different and didn't have the same. They weren't portrayed as widows because not all of their husbands had died, but it was the characterization of Black single mothers versus white single mothers was completely different. The white women were considered damsels in distress, and the Black women were considered welfare mothers, just taken from the system and lowly.
Yep, tough as a rock.
Yep. And that's where the superwoman complex comes from and all that.
Black women are strong. All that comes from there.
Yeah, Black women don't experience pain the same way as white women, so medical care is different, like all these things. So yeah, I don't know how I forgot about that, but it's definitely true, the systemic part of it.
Okay, so this is the last question. Though there are nevertheless obstacles that we face in America because of race, what can and should be done by Black people to solve some of the problems facing the nuclear family and marriage in our community?
I think they need to get their behinds off of social media and shut down the passport bros.
Ooh, I don't know. What are we going to do without TikTok? I don't want to do that.
Let me stop messing around. No, TikTok is different, but you got Facebook and I don't know about Instagram too much, but you got a lot of different social media circles where people are like going in, and it's when they say battle of the sexes, it's to a totally different degree these days in certain circles. Like I literally had to exit some groups because they're real malicious. You got men malicious towards women. You got women real malicious towards men. You got men trolling women who are trying to say, hey, we don't even want to deal with all of that. You got me in the middle talking about your mama. You know what I mean? It's like, it's real. So like, I just disengage from all of that for real. But I think if that's one thing, like just stop talking about each other.
And the other things, I think, in terms of society, there needs to be deeper investments in Black families, Black home ownership, access to counseling and resources. Oh Lord, is she gone again?
Yeah, she is. She's back.
Getting rid of this.
I came back in.
Okay. Getting rid of the student loan debt. I personally feel like any African American in this country who has been here for at least 3 generations should never pay for college. Period. That should be part of the 48 acres and a mule to me. But there is no investment, either the government or just socially, to invest in Black families. And I think that whereas that investment is for sure in white families in terms of access to pre-K care,
Yep.
better services, better schools, whether it's public or private, better access to books and things like that. So I think there has to be an intentional effort to invest in Black family values.
Yeah, I agree. I really think that it honestly should be a requirement for Black Americans to receive financial education, learn the language of money as the government sees it, whether it goes into the stock market or what. Like those should be like some like
financial
necessary,
literacy.
some necessary teachings and tools.
But you also have to give Black people a leg up. We built the country for free.
Which is why like that financial education is key. And then if you follow it up with something in terms of like, because I mean, really and truly, when you look back, the 40 acres and a mule didn't happen because you had a whole population that literally were signing off for that land and that property as though they were Black Americans.
Yeah.
Right. So the land was being stolen. So like again, so it has to be some type of, just like you said, that intentional investment. And I know that, they consider a lot of that like the nonprofit, things like that. But we're talking about some straight up real free services for everyone that has had any type of gap in their I'll say in their family lineage. Black Americans they cannot trace back at a certain point. It just stops, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But imagine if every child in the inner city had free lunch, breakfast and lunch every single day, and wouldn't have to worry about it. If you knew that you could, make decent grades and go to school for free, and that gives you a leg up, a BA degree, bachelor's of something, whatever degree, and then also lower rates for home ownership. If all Black folks had a 2% interest rate, that would be huge. And loans that actually didn't cause Black ownership to go upside down in terms of defaulting on their loans and things like that. So those are the like intentional investments. And just as the system of racism has been targeted towards Black people, the opposite has to be intentionally done for Black people. Not affirmative action, but just reparations for the gap of 246 years that were stripped.
Give people some land, honey. Give me some land. There's people out here, all they want is land.
Yeah, and if you have land, then teach people how to build, like regular carpenter skills, construction skills, etc.
Yeah.
But,
so I agree with that. I do agree with that.
So it definitely has to be an intentional, mandated resources from the government. And I don't think that we should have to figure this out ourselves. The government used our labor for 246 years. They should repay us in an equitable way. So,
Mm-hmm. And I
boom, there
think,
you go.
just to add on that, I think we all should get a free round trip ticket, what is included stay
And
to
no
any
taxes. I ain't paying no more
any
taxes.
country that we want to visit in Africa for 30 days. I mean, hey.
I'm not against that.
Okay. Is that all that y'all want to say?
Yeah, that's all I had to say.
She gonna say, "Is that all you got to say?" And then Alyse Stewart left.
Dang, she probably got kicked off again. There she go.
My poor baby, yo. She's having
So
a
you
hard
good if I
time.
stop the recording?
Let's wait till she.
Oh, wait, I have to say my goodbyes first. I have to say my goodbyes. Okay, I want to thank you both so much for doing this because you didn't have to. But thank you, Mom and Auntie, for all your thoughts. Now you can stop
You're
the recording
welcome.
if you want.
You're most welcome.
I hope it helps you.
Again, I just want to thank my grandparents, my aunt, and my mother for helping me with the interview. I appreciate their help. As I said, they didn't have to, but just the love that they give to me. I know I was struggling a little bit with the video and the interviews, but we made it work. And yes, thank you.